Welcome to I Married a Urologist. This is a fun and educational show where the doctor's wife discusses all things urology, a taboo subject that will affect 100% of the human race at some point in their lifetime. Join host Madeline Zech Ruiz, the author of I Married a Urologist, who fixes women too, wife of urological surgeon Dr. Henry Ruiz, as she interviews medical experts, patients, and industry professionals who develop solutions for problems with our downstairs plumbing. Madeline lifts the veil to all things urology and helps us learn how to reclaim our quality of life.
Welcome back to the show, to I Married a Urologist, keeping your plumbing healthy. So today's show is going to be a lot different from the other shows. In the past shows, we talked about erectile dysfunction, incontinence, lack of desire, prostate cancer, and all things urology with several people from the front lines and several urologists. But today, I have a very special returning guest, Mr. Todd Rule, who is Senior Sales Manager in an industry that both of our spouses work in. But today, he and I are here as spouses of Reconstructive Urologists. So Todd and I were going to talk about this venture, being married to these reconstructive urologists, because when you are married to someone who has a career that is a calling or their entire life, when you marry that person, you become a part of the calling. And maybe initially you don't know it, right?
Correct.
You don't know it, but you get called to action because people know who you are, they know who you're married to, and people are suffering. So they will seek you out in an effort to try and solve their urological problems. So Todd and I, what's interesting is that 30 years ago, Todd got into the industry of urology, right?
Correct.
Yeah, how old were you then? Is that okay
let's
to ask?
see. Yeah, that's fair. I was just a graduate from college, and I went to work for a small company that dealt in erectile dysfunction, and my college friends all made fun of me. 6 months later, they all wanted jobs. So I guess the joke was on them, right? So I was 22 years old. And just turned 23 after working for the company about 2 months. So my whole life, I grew up in urology, but not on the surgeon side, on the sales professional side. And back then, we were called certified clinical technicians. Why? Because we met with patients every day at urologist offices, VAs, clinics, and we taught patients how to use this device. And then, fast forward another, 20-some years, I married a urologist. So.
And how long have you guys been married?
It'll be 10 years. You have to know these numbers, right?
It'll
be 10 years in December.
I won't. Oh, he has the month.
Of 2021.
That's
December 15th. Just in case she's watching.
Wow, yeah, I know. I know my wedding anniversary. We've been married 20 years in March. I almost can't say that. Did I almost choke? Well, so talking about being married to these urologists, it kind of becomes, for me, I'm going to talk about me for a moment because that's why I wrote the book, I Married a Urologist. What happened is I live in a small town here in McAllen, Texas, and everybody knows who my reconstructive urologist husband is. And I'm a computer chick. I don't know anything about urology or human plumbing, but after 20 years of people coming up to me and whispering or, going stealth in the parking lot to try and get my attention, I was floored what was going on in the world with people. Because what I learned, and I bet you did too, is that when your plumbing breaks, you keep it a secret. Right?
That's the worst part about it.
It's the worst part.
It's the worst part. For the patient.
For the patient. And so you're married to your doctor wife. Now, and you do penile implants.
Correct.
That's just funny. I don't do...
She implants artificial sphincters mostly, so she's on the urethral side of it to stop leaking, not create erections. But yes, she does do occasional implants.
So,
penile implants.
And now you guys have a young child. I have 2 children who are now 17 and 18, and they are a little mortified that, number one, their father is a reconstructive urologist because they figured out everything about penis and vagina at a very young age. And now their mother wrote a book. I will tell you, though, that I am popular at my son's fraternity.
I can only imagine.
Because of my book, of all things in the frat house, right? And so it becomes a way of life. But at a price, too. I'm going to touch on that a little bit because it kind of ties into marriage.
Right.
It ties into career, and it ties into a way of life.
Correct.
I can remember when my kids were little, and I bet you do this now, my husband would never make it home for dinner, so I would put the kids in their onesies and take them over to the office and sit in the waiting room with the patients, and when he would open the door to come out to get the next patient, I would ask the patients, do you mind if we cut in front of you so the kids can kiss their papa goodnight? And of course they were just more than gracious to do that. But that's the price, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a big price to pay. I have 4 children, actually. I have a 2-year-old daughter. She turned 2 a couple months ago, so she's a little older than 2. And I have a 25-year-old son, an almost 24-year-old son, a 19-year-old daughter, and we decided to do this all over again, which is the greatest blessing ever. Unfortunately, with COVID, I can't take my daughter to the hospital or to the waiting room because you can't get in there without an appointment. But your point is well taken. I think, the biggest challenge when you marry a surgeon doesn't necessarily have to be a urologist, could be any physician or any surgeon.
Right.
They're on call and things happen. And as we talked anecdotally before, that it makes you cherish the 15 minutes you might have, not focused on the 24 hour or 23 hours and 45 minutes you didn't have, because on call can be very challenging. So as we talk about, it's all about communication, getting in front of it, and just enjoying the moment, not worrying about what you might have missed.
Totally.
To me.
Yeah, and making the time.
Yes.
I know one thing that my husband and I do is that we have a standing date night. It's every Friday night at 8:00. Just in case you're watching, honey. And come hell or high water, he has to be at that dinner table.
Right.
Now, some of those Fridays he's on call.
Right.
And so if he's on call, he can go, and he has.
Right.
I've learned to finish my dinner on my own, and you know what that's about.
Sure, absolutely.
But it becomes kind of more than that because, for example, it was my dad's 93rd birthday last week, and I head over to the grocery store, to the bakery, to get my dad's birthday cake. Well, all the bakery ladies are my husband's patient, and they just love it when I come in there. I mean, God bless them, they're so lovely. But, of course, one of them was having problems.
Right.
So she comes out from behind the cake counter, which is a big deal,
Right,
to pull me aside and whisper in my ear that, she needs to see my husband again. Does this happen to you?
Yeah, and they could be a current patient or find out, So a lot of my friends know that my wife's a urologist and know she operates on patients. And so they'll bring one of their friends up to the table, or if I'm not at a table with my wife, I might be at a bar with my friends, and they'll start talking to me, and you get pulled outside so often. It's very interesting, and I remember getting a phone call a few days after meeting a whole group of folks at a bar, and this gentleman on the other line says, "You're going to help me." Oh. And I thought, geez, is this like an IRS call, or what is this about? And he proceeded to tell me that one of his really good friends had prostate cancer, and he was having difficulty finding an appointment, yada yada yada. So I was able to connect the dots, get him an appointment, and subsequently I think we've referred 5 or 6 friends. My wife doesn't operate on prostates. She's not a urologic oncologist. She fixes things like your husband does after the fact.
Rebuilds
but
it.
the point is that you get pulled away from so many conversations. But like we talked about earlier, at the end of the day, I can put my head on the pillow at night knowing I did something good for somebody. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
But it can be all-encompassing and consuming because it's my life, a work life, doing this every day, and then we bring it home. So that's the challenge.
It is a challenge in a marriage because it can take the sexy out of marriage really quick if you let it, can't it?
It sure can.
Yeah.
Or it makes the guy awful nervous when their wife's a urologist. You know what I mean?
God, performance issues. I feel the same way. Evidently, so he's a reconstructive urologist, but what I learned is that 52% of his patients are women, which I did not know that. This is probably year number 8 into the marriage, and somebody said to me, I saw your husband today, and he's going to help me because, I'm incontinent since I delivered my babies. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I was happy but shocked. I get home, I'm like, honey, you take care of women too? He's like, yes, I'm a urologist. I'm like, what do you do for women? He's like, they leak after babies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you're looking at women all day long? Which then my mind goes south, right? Because I'm like, well, does that mean that you're looking at me too? Like, are you treating me like a wife or a patient, right? It's pressure.
It's a dichotomy, right? So, I'm on the reverse side. My wife's practice is a little different than your husband's because she's at a cancer institution, and she sees mostly men because of post-prostatectomy incontinence.
Right.
So, her practice is probably 60-40, roughly. So I remember when we started dating, and it's coming to that point where you're going to either cross over to become more than just dating. I think you know where this is going, right? So you're thinking, oh man, this is going to be really rough. I wonder how many penises she's seen. I hope I don't have any problems.
Right.
Fast forward, I didn't, but the anxiety is there. It's real.
It's real.
So there's all these facets of us being married to these urologists that make it rather interesting, to say the least.
I have always said to my husband, I said, it's very intimidating to me that you know more about my body than I do. Like, I really didn't even know what was down there, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm a computer chick. I'm not that interested.
Right.
But I have learned what's down there because everybody in this town tells me what's down there for them and what's not working.
Right.
And I really became, over the years, heartbroken.
Right.
Because, it all funny aside,
yes.
People are really suffering.
They are.
And so it kind of became a humanitarian mission as a wife of a reconstructive urologist, because you can't say no.
Right.
I mean, you could. You'd be a real jerk, right?
Right, correct.
I would never do that.
Correct.
Now, you do a lot for the veterans too, right?
Yeah, what's great about the veterans is, they are receiving really good care, and it's a training opportunity for young urologists as well, but a lot of our patients are veterans.
Yeah.
And a lot of them suffer, like I talked about earlier, incontinence and erectile dysfunction as a result of prostate cancer. I do have a great veteran story if you want to hear it.
I do.
So I usually ride my motorcycle when I cover cases at the VA. Because the parking is easier. It's up front. If as long as it's not going to rain, I just ride my motorcycle, and the vets love it. And I have a motorcycle that's green with a star on it, like Army green. They go crazy. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But we've been going to Sturgis since 2012 as a couple, and we met a lot of people through that process. And my wife and I, the first time we were there in 2012, we looked down Main Street. For those of you that don't know, Sturgis is the largest motorcycle rally in the world. It's held in a small town called Sturgis, South Dakota. There's 500,000 to 1 million motorcycles could be there. It's crazy. But we looked down Main Street, thousands of people, and she said to me, all I see is my patients. And so we started meeting people through this process, and I met a young man a couple of years ago that was in a wheelchair, and he was nervous to talk to us, but his wife ended up talking to us. That day we actually connected him with a surgeon at a VA in his local community. About 9 months later, the company got a letter. The company I work for received a letter from this patient, and he said, not only did you save my marriage, you saved my life.
Oh,
that's really cool,
Yeah.
Don't want to get emotional on it, but these guys are, they need help, they want help. We live in a country because of what they do every day to keep us safe, provide freedom, and it's the least thing we can do to help them.
The emotion here that he's sharing, and thank you for that, is so real, because that is what we do, and we didn't sign up for it.
Yeah.
We didn't sign up for it. Our spouses did. They went to school for 16 years, some crazy number, and then they married us. And you get indoctrinated into this way of life, and they were trained to handle these traumas. I'll call them traumas because I'm not used to it. But it rips my heart out, which is why I wrote this book. Although this book has some humor in it, there are answers in here because I couldn't handle the suffering that people were going through with erectile dysfunction or the potential suicide because if it's not working anymore, I'm done, Or the wives, here's a big one, because, when my kids were in school, you run into all the mommies and daddies that are on kid duty. And when the kids are like 3, 4, 5, mom and dad both put on some weight, the marriage is difficult, the kids are demanding, you're tired, all of a sudden the man has erectile dysfunction, the wife is leaking urine, there's not enough money in the bank, and everybody wants a divorce.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, when you just scrape all that off, Do you know what the underlying issue is? I want to say 9 times out of 10 because I'm Irish and I like to embellish. But do you want to know what's under all that half the time? Some secret urological condition that makes it where the communication in the relationship stops.
Yeah.
And it stops because if I started leaking, I'm not going to tell my husband. I know he's a urologist, but he's not my doctor.
Right.
And I always tell him, mind your own business. This is my body. Do not play doctor in this house, right? That's like so embarrassing to me. And he's like, I don't understand. I'm a doctor. And I'm like, I'm not your patient. This is embarrassing to me. I don't want to talk about, I want to be sexy to you and I want to be, your wife. I don't want to be your patient.
Right.
Do you have that problem with your wife?
I'm lucky right now. I'm 53 years old. I don't have any issues like that. Like I told you earlier in this segment, there always is the anxiety issue.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we're helping, like you said earlier, we're helping patients, and that's what I always try to focus on. My mother, that's why you didn't even notice my
Oh my God, let me see.
See, I don't know if you guys can pan down or not, but
That's
raise my leg. So
awesome.
I always try to wear pink. When I go on trips. I traveled here from Houston, but this is my wife. My mother is a breast cancer survivor, and what we do for work is like we talked about earlier. Most of these patients are prostate cancer survivors. So, whatever we can do to highlight the fact that these patients don't have information,
Right.
they don't know where to seek treatment.
Right.
And that's why I so applaud you for your book. I mean, we're breaking down barriers. We're making it's okay now to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's the key to this. And, my wife and I talk, after long days and long weeks and weekends sometimes, at the end of the day, it makes you feel good that you changed somebody's life.
Yeah.
Right? That's the cool part about it.
Yeah, I know that Henry and I reflect back on 20 years of marriage, and it's been good. It's been hard because it's been about almost everybody else first.
Right.
And that feels really good. It comes with a price. Yeah. And so you struggle to bring balance back to the relationship because it is easy to get pulled in all those directions because everybody has a problem.
Right.
And you have to set boundaries, which can be really hard. Yeah. But in the end, I had this one lady. This is a great story. It's in my book. I got stalked in the high school parking lot. You can always see them coming, right? Like she's looking to see who's looking at her, and then she moves to the next car, and she gets over to me, and she's like, Mrs. Ruiz. And I'm like, oh, hi. I don't really know who it is, but it's one of the moms, right? You just say hi. She's like, can I talk to you for a moment? And I'm thinking, you got me. I'm in the car line. I'm not going far. So she goes, my husband has a problem. And I'm thinking, what does this have to do with me? This was early on. Like, why is this my problem? And she starts to tell me that when he gets an erection, his penis bends.
Yeah, Peyronie's disease is called.
Okay, I didn't know. So and then it hurts. It's painful.
Right.
So she goes, when my husband gets an erection, he almost starts screaming. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that is terrible. That is so 911. Right. So she's all done, 20 minutes, and I'm asking 20 questions about his penis. Right. I know everything about it now because I didn't know anything about the disease. Mm-hmm. But after talking to her, my final question was to her, okay, can I ask you a question? This is how I'm not a doctor, because I ask these crazy questions. I wanted to know, how do you get it in if it's hooked? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I don't. That's why I'm here. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I realized this wasn't a Peyronie's disease problem. This was a marital problem.
It's a partner's problem. Right?
Yeah, a relationship problem. Right. And so that really kind of opened my eyes that I better quit giggling because it's only funny until it happens to you, right?
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah.
So the other thing we should probably mention when we're talking about, the beauty of their jobs is your husband and my wife also teach residents.
Oh, yes, they do.
And they have fellows. So what does that mean for the layperson out there? So you go to medical school, and then you decide you want to join or you want to get more specialized. You don't want to be a general practitioner, mm-hmm. for example. Not that there's anything wrong with a general practitioner.
No, they're great.
They're great. But if you want to become a surgeon and you want to specialize, you go to residency programs. It used to be 4 years, now it's 5 years, some places 6 years. And so that's additional training outside of the 4-year degree, outside of the 4-year medical degree.
Right.
Then you have 6 more years of training. Then if you really want to get specialized, you do a fellowship.
Like our spouses.
Yeah, like our spouses did, and they teach fellows and teach residents. And I asked my wife, what's more satisfaction? What provides more satisfaction to you? The fact that you treat patients, or that you're helping future treaters of patients learn? And to her, it's still a toss-up. But I think, and I'd love that. We'll have to ask your husband the same question, or you can. But the fact that they're giving to the future, that's been very important to her as well. So the training part, they're training future leaders in this business and in this treatment of patients is really cool too.
Future healers.
Right, correct.
Yeah, we just started a medical school here. I don't know if you know that.
I know that, yeah. And residency too.
Residency. We have a urological residency program here, and my husband, of course, is the chair of it because he started it along with a team of people. And we have a urology resident. It's a woman, which I'm super proud of, our second one. And I can always tell when he has been teaching, because he comes home with the biggest grin on his face. And that's never the case. He always comes home a beaten man, right? He's exhausted because those surgeries they do are very complex mentally. So I'm like, you were teaching today, weren't you? And he's like, how did you know that? I go, well, you're a little too happy today. And he goes, oh, my resident is so amazing. And he goes, and this is the future, and it's time for me to share my knowledge and pass the baton
and leave a legacy.
Leave a legacy.
My wife's mentor, Dr. Ed McGuire, left a legacy, and there's all these people that have been trained. I know your husband's mentor did the same thing.
Yeah, we even have this is something that we do. Just you guys probably do too. We'll have high school kids who are seniors and about to graduate, and they think they want to become a doctor.
Right.
We have one right now, my daughter's horse friends, their son. He is shadowing Henry through the OR for, I think it's been like 3 weeks now. And I was able to talk him into, he wanted to be a gynecologist, but I was able to talk him into looking into a urogynecologist because there aren't very many and we need them.
Right.
And so he went to a bunch of surgeries with Henry, and now he's turned on to urogynecology.
Right.
Which is, more legacy, and it helps people like us, right? Because this is what we do. For God's sakes, I wrote a book about it. You're in up to your neck living it when a book pops out of the marriage, which that's not my wheelhouse, by the way. I'm a computer chick. I grew up in the world of Microsoft and Amazon and corporate America, so I don't know anything about medicine, but now I know about people suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key.
No, it's great what we do, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I know. High five,
This has been fun.
This has been so great, Todd.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a little off subject, but yet it's really what it's all about. So I want to thank Todd for coming to the show today and talking about his wife and their life and their family and their devotion to this country and to humanity to make the world a better place through all things urology. I feel you. I'm doing the same thing. And I say to both of us, let's keep up the good work.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Todd. Have a great
You're welcome.
day.
My pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to I Married a Urologist with Madeline Zech Ruiz. Please push the subscribe button below the screen and leave us a comment. For more information on urological questions, feel free to contact us through our website, www.imarriedurologist.com. And be sure to catch our next fun and educational episode on all things urology.